Addition here. This is something we've been wanting for a long time to help with the teaching, make things, I think, a little better. That's one of many, many things we're going to be doing over the next few months to try to just take things up another notch or two. Got this week, I may cry. This week we're getting rid of Windstream. and we're getting Spectrum. And I don't want to be too technical. With this, but you know how there's different speeds and all that stuff. Our internet is going to go from here to here, maybe here. Okay, so it means, and it's not just so you guys can get better Wi-Fi. It means that right now, when we do the classes for the kids in the other rooms, we have to burn DVDs. Remember that from the 70s? Burn DVDs, and we'll be able to just let them stream it, and it'll be like, so the whole campus is going to be so much better because of those things. And we've got a lot of things we're trying to do. We just hired Vince Sharon, who's going to be our pastor of spiritual development, to take things there to a brand new level. Kristen Green is on board now as our children's director, and we're excited about that because we haven't found anything she's not excited about. She's just like, which is way cool. And we're also going to be doing a lot of projects this summer. You're going to hear more and more about that as we go. Some of them little, some of them medium, big. We've got that tent building is 10 years old and showing some age, and we've got to fix the hedges around that. And the portables are all looking like they could use a lot of TLC, and we're doing that over the next. And have a lot of little work days throughout the summer. We need new check-in stations for the kids, and we need new routers for and so over the summer, you're going to be hearing little things all summer long and giving you opportunities to financially and physically help out. And what are your areas where you like to do things? Find something you like to do, and we'll have probably a work day just for your stuff. And it's exciting stuff. And I guess there's only one group in the room who wouldn't be excited about it, and those are the ones that Uncle Sam's already told you you're leaving in a month, leaving in 6 weeks, leaving some. And we know that's part of our church culture, is the fact that there are people who, every once in a while, on a regular basis, Uncle Sam just says, it's time. And we viewed it as part of our mission as a church from the beginning. There's the concept that there are some people here for 3 years and 2 years, and some people here for a long, long time. And we call them Dandelions. We had 2 of our Dandelions in the last service who were visiting from out of town. And what we do is, wherever you are in your spiritual development, we try to help you, however long you're here, grow into God's design for your life. And we know that for a lot of people, as you reach a certain level of maturity, Uncle Sam's just going to go and blow you to Kansas or something. And we know that's how it works, and we're just sort of okay with it. We understand it as part of our mission. Like I said last week, that means that not only do we get to annoy people around here, we get to send you off to annoy churches all over the country. And so this series is actually called Dandelions, and this series we're going to be talking, first off, to talk to the people who are going to eventually get moved on. And here are the things, some of the things, it's not like an super organized list. Here's some things we want to make sure you take with you if you go. And if you're going to stay here, there's some things we want to make sure you remember and apply and keep in your lives the whole time. And so some of it's really practical, like today we're talking about something. Just last year, Gallup does all the surveys. Gallup did a survey back in 2009. I've got to make sure I get the word right. They call it subjective well-being, which is a 75-cent word that means happy. Okay, subjective well-being. How do you feel about yourself? How do you feel about your life? Are you optimistic, pessimistic? Subjective well-being. And they did a survey in 2009. They did it in 2017. Now, if you remember back to 2009, try really hard, we were in a recession in 2009. The economy was just in the tank. In 2017, the economy's back, unemployment's down, everything's looking really, really good. So they had an expectation that subjective well-being would go up during that 9-year period. And turned out a little different. One of the things they found was that even with the economy humming, Americans are feeling more anxious, depressed, and dissatisfied with their lives than they did in 2009. And you're going, well, yeah, I understand. There are certain states where things are really, really bad. No, what they found was that it happened in every state. The sense of well-being, contentment, declined in all 50 states over the past 8 years. All 50 states. Now, this is where it gets really fascinating. The next thing is those declines are concentrated in the very states that had the higher levels of well-being in 2009, Just let me explain that to you. If you were happy in 2009, you're less happy now. Matter of fact, the last thing, the economy improved, but instead of the unhappy people moving up toward the happy people actually moved down toward the unhappy. You're expecting when the economy improves, you got happy people, you got unhappy people. As the economy gets better, you get more stuff, you got a better job, you get to work more. You'd expect the unhappy people to get higher, but instead the ones who were feeling good in 2009, they're getting over it. And they're now unhappy too. So we've got a country that even as the economy goes up, happiness, satisfaction, joy goes down, which isn't the way God intended it to work. If you want to, turn on your Bible, or use your QR code in your bulletin there to get to Philippians chapter 4. And we're going to spend today, we're just going to dig into Philippians 4. That's what we're going to do the entire time. And as a reminder, in Philippians 4, a guy named Paul wrote the letter, and he wrote the letter while he was in jail. So remember that. This is a guy in jail writing a letter to other people who are what? Not in jail. Okay? So let me just read you this Philippians 4. We're going to read a good bit of it. I want you to listen for some key words. It says, always be full of joy in the Lord. I say it again, rejoice. Let everyone see that you are considerate in all you do. Remember, the Lord is coming soon. Don't worry about anything. Instead, pray about everything. Tell God what you need and thank Him for all He's done. Then you'll experience God's peace, which exceeds everything we can understand. His peace will guard your hearts and minds as you live in Christ Jesus. And now, dear brothers and sisters, one final thing. Fix your thoughts on what is true and honorable and right and pure and lovely and admirable. Think about things that are excellent and worthy of praise. Keep putting into practice all you've learned and received from me. Everything you heard from me and saw me doing, then the God of peace will be with you. How I'll praise the Lord that you are concerned about me again. In other words, Paul's talking very practically to the people now. I know you've always been concerned for me, but you didn't have the chance to help me. In other words, they wanted to send him money, but they couldn't. Now, not that I was ever in need, for I have learned how to be content with whatever I have. I know how to live on almost nothing or with everything. I have learned the secret of living in every situation, whether it is with full stomach or empty, with plenty or little, for I can do everything through Christ who gives me strength. And there are three words that popped out at me as I'm reading this passage. Three words that all come together. And those three words are joy and peace and contentment. And if you think about it, all three of those words, they're not from the same Greek root or anything like that, but don't they all come from the same tree of how your life is? I mean, it's hard to have peace if you don't have contentment. If you're discontent, you're not peaceful. If you don't have peace, it's hard to have joy. Matter of fact, peace is contentment plus trust. If you're content with what you have and you're trusting God to take care of you, you're going to have peace, right? If you're discontent, you're not going to have peace. But if you're content and you're trusting God, you have peace. And what is joy? Joy is when peace sort of bubbles out. That's when peace becomes something you can see. In other words, you can see when somebody's joyful, you see the peace in their face. You see the peace in their actions, right? So they're all kind of coming from the same tree. And these are the three things that our culture between 2009 and 2018 has declined in every single state. Okay? So, if God's talking about it through Paul, maybe we can learn something about how we can live so that we can have contentment, peace, and joy. Anybody want those three things? You're not going to go anywhere. Would you? If I could give you contentment, would you like that? Nah, I don't really want it. I'm tired. I like being discontent. I like being ill at ease. I hate being joyful. You just don't find those people, right? We all want this, and Paul's giving us sort of a prescription, a recipe for how to have it. And so we're going to spend today looking at that. And the first thing I want you to get is that these three things, peace, joy, and contentment, are something you decide. That starts with a decision that you make. Okay? A lot of times we have this idea that these things are things God's supposed to throw at us. But what did he say? I have decided. Or how did it start out? It starts out with the first thing he says is that joy is a command, right? It says, I'm going to put that verse up there. Please. I'll read it off here if I have to. Okay. Always be full of joy in the Lord. I say it again, rejoice. Now, that's a command. Okay? Not an option. First, understand, God never commands you to do something you can't do. When God commands it, that means you have control of it. A lot of people have this idea that joy is something that happens to you. No, joy is what you do to your surroundings, how you interpret your surroundings, how you live out your surroundings. So joy is a command, not an option. And by the way, for those of you who like to say this silly thing, joy can't be stolen. Or like, it stole my joy. No, the circumstances changed, and you chose to have the reaction to the circumstances to cease being joyful. They didn't steal it from you. Okay? It's a command, not an option, and it cannot be stolen. And finally, and this is the harsh one, I'm going to be a little strong with you. Not being joyful is disobedient. If you are not being joyful, if Paul commands you to be joyful, and you choose not to be, not doing that is called disobedience. Is that heavy enough for you? Because he didn't just say it there. If you go through the whole passage, everything in there, there's another verse that says, what's the next verse say? It says, don't worry about anything. Instead, pray about everything. Tell God what you need and thank him for all he's done. Then you'll experience God's peace. You want God's peace? Do this. Okay? Keep putting into practice all you've learned and received from me, everything you heard and saw me doing. Then the God of peace will be with you. So this is a decision you are making on a regular basis. Now, obviously, now that it's a decision, let me tell you something that you're doing wrong. Because a lot of you have heard that before. Choose joy, and you make a decision and all this stuff. And I best explain it. Kind of proud. My daughter, Dominique's graduating from high school in just a couple of weeks, and she's decided she wants to be a doctor. I think that's pretty cool. And we, because we're supportive parents, you know this building right up here on the corner? On the Food Line Strip, there's on the corner. If you're here a long, long time ago, it was a video store. You may Google that to see what those are. It was a video store, and then it got turned into a fitness center, and now it's vacant. So Dominique's mother and I, we're renting out that building for her medical clinic. And she graduates from high school next month, first of next month, and we're going to go ahead and put a sign up, Dominique's doctor place. And I'm probably going to do, you know how I like to do those obnoxious signs where I put those little signs in the thing? I'm going to this way to Dominique's medical clinic, and we're going to put all the, and so June 10th is when you graduate. June 10th, she's going to start her medical clinic right there. And so we expect everybody to show up because Dominique has decided to be a doctor, so we're going to support her, and she's going to start being a doctor early to mid-June. She may take a couple days off before she starts her medical practice. All right, anybody buying that? Of course not, right? Because she's decided that means she's going to go to college, and then she's going to go to medical school, and then she's going to do internships. That's what she's decided to do. And let me tell you what so many of you have done, have fallen for this, not really a lie, but this missing the thing. You've fallen for the idea that once you decide to be content, that contentment is a decision, and joy is a decision, and peace is a decision, that your purpose is now you will it into existence, and it stays there because you're willing it. And if you stop being joyful, it's because you've decided not to. And you need to go back and right? And you hold it in existence. But that's not at all what it says. Because it also says that peace, joy, and contentment are learned. Peace, joy, and contentment are learned. Paul said, I have learned whatever state I am there to be content. I'll be able to, whatever I have, whatever I got, I'm going to take that and I'm going to be content with it. But it's something that I've learned. And if you just read the context and you read it in there, you can tell it's not something he picked up at a seminar recently. You ever had something you just picked it up? You read it in a book. You saw a YouTube video and you learned it. And that's not what it sounds like. It sounds like anybody here naturally patient. I was making sure nobody's lying. Okay. How many of you are more patient now than you used to be? You have learned patience. And I know that's true of a lot of you because you haven't killed any of your children. Right? Because that's one of God's teaching tools is you want to learn patience? Here, have one of these pre-humans. Pre-adults, I guess I should say. And you get to help them become adults. And you go, okay, should I strangle them? Not today, not today, not today. Right? And you learn it over time, and it's something. And these things, this peace, joy, and contentment, there's something that you decide to do, and deciding to do them is deciding to go to medical school for peace, joy, and contentment. It's deciding to start the process of learning how to do it. And let me take this. I'm going to just give you one area where one analogy to help you understand the learning process and how this kind of works. Because one of the things that I figured I learned a good while ago is that you've got different components in your life. And each of them has its own set of stuff. And I like to liken it to a car engine. Some of you can raise a car engine and know what's there. I've got a technique I use when the car's not doing right. I make sure there's a crowd, and I raise the engine, and I look at it. Guys, you do this when you go into any store that features women's things, right? You go in, and you learn pretty soon you don't go in like this. You go in like. And pretty soon somebody will come over and help you. I do the cars. Engine, right? Got it. Well, if you're in a car, I do know this much. There are 3 primary fluids that make your car actually run, the engine actually run. Not the transmission, just the engine itself. They run because you keep 3 fluids in them, and there's a reservoir for each one of them. You've got a gas tank, right? You've got an oil receptacle for the oil. I'm a mechanic. It's just, can't you tell? Can't you tell? I did it a couple weeks ago with a flat tire even. Somebody came fixing it. And you've got you can call it coolant or antifreeze, depending on what time of year it is, as to which it's doing. And you've got those 3. And what happens if you run out of any one of those 3? Bad things, right? Bad stuff happens no matter what. And I felt for years that you can look at those and you can see 3 components of your life. This is not everything in your life, but these are the 3 areas where contentment and satisfaction and peace and joy are going to be most hindered if they're not working. And gas, that's kind of like your physical being. Physical stuff. Place to stay, food to eat, taking care of yourself as far as health and, working out a little bit, maybe getting some exercise, eating the right foods. And that's the gas. That's the gas. And the coolant is kind of like your emotions. And your emotions are important, and you need something to help those in your emotions there. And the oil, oil, come on, it's got to be spiritual, right? It just sounds really biblical to say oils. Spiritual. So we'll call the oil the spirit one. And here's the thing you understand. Each one is incredibly crucial, each one is vital, and each one is independent. Okay? If you're driving down the road and your engine's overheating, I bet I need coolant. And you pull off at one of those gas stations that's, where you don't ever talk to a human because they're behind the little wall, and you pull in there. And I need coolant. And they go, we don't have any of that right now. We don't have any of that. But obviously we have lots of gasoline and we have plenty of oil. Maybe that'll help. Yeah. Let me make sure I got plenty of gas. Let me fill the gas tank up, make sure it's completely full, and let me make sure let me add a little extra oil. What's that going to do to your coolant level? Not a thing. And you can't do this either. You can't say, well, I bet I don't think putting gasoline in my coolant's a good idea, but I wonder if some oil would help. Yeah, that's not going to do anything at all. And here's what you got to understand. You've got these 3 different systems. You've got the coolant system, you've got the oil system, and you've got the gas system. And you have to maintain all 3 at a working level all the time. And this is what we mess up on, you can't compensate for one by overfilling the other. What do I mean by that? Well, let's take the physical system. The gasoline that runs your system. Okay? Here's what a lot of you are doing. I know people everywhere doing this. Emotionally, you're not doing very well. You're kind of tired emotionally. So what do you need? A new car, maybe? A new house? How about a better diet so I can drop a couple of those pounds? That'll help me out emotionally, won't it? I need to work out some more, because that'll help me out emotionally. Now, if there's a little bit of overplay, if you're out of shape, it does affect the other systems, just like when you're out of gasoline, it doesn't matter whether you got oil or not, you're not going anywhere. But if your level is good, it doesn't matter if you overfill it anymore. Like my truck has half a tank of gas right now. That's going to get me home, right? And filling up the other won't make it run any better. It won't change anything about the oil. And a lot of people are going, if I could just get more stuff, more money, or I could get in better shape, I would be emotionally a better person. But how many times have you had the Christmas disapproval of that? Okay? You can watch your kids, but you're the same way. Here comes the big event. I get the stuff that I want, and I'm dissatisfied again. I go back to, it's like, here's my satisfaction level. New thing. Right? I mean, you can't even get it unwrapped good before you're back to normal. Right? And so, you can't do a whole lot. But matter of fact, Paul said in 1 Timothy that if I have food and clothing, we'll be content with that. If I have the basic minimum, if there's enough gas in my tank, I am going to choose to be content with that. And I'm not going to fall for the idea that if I just add more gas, I'll spiritually be better. If you go to any gym in the world, you'll find that person, right? Or these people who are like, if I could just increase my deadlift by 10 pounds, I'd be happier. Right? If I could just, get a six-pack. Not that six-pack, the other six-pack. Although the other people in the other six. Never mind. However you're going to use that phrase, it works. And by the way, I'm going to tell you, as we go to each one, I'm going to tell you what the hole is in it, because there's a hole that tends to appear in every one of these 3 different reservoirs. And for your physical, that hole is abuse. It's taking anything and having too much of it. Now, some things it doesn't take much. It doesn't take a whole lot of heroin for that to be too much. All right. But there are other things that you can flood in. Matter of fact, if you give somebody too much dye, little red dye, they'll get cancer. Now, the amount you need is like they have to swim in it and drink it for like gallons and gallons and gallons, and 2 drops over the course of your lifetime aren't going to do damage at all. But anything you overdo can lead to leakage and problems with your spiritual. I mean, this is just for me, just to help you guys out and just make my life easier. This is water. This is always water. Okay? There's no Mountain Dew in there. That's water. And every time anybody finds something negative about Mountain Dew, they send me the link. Thanks. But there are a lot of things competing to kill me right now. I don't think the fact that I have 4 or 5 cans of Mountain Dew a week is going to be the one that wins. I enjoy it, but I'm not going to take it to an extreme where it actually tears me down. Does that make sense? Anything you do to an extreme has a tendency and can mess you up. Some of you go on the all broccoli diet. I'm going to outlive that person. Because I'm getting all the stuff I need, not just 2 or 3 of them. You do enough to keep your tank full, enough to where you feel okay about yourself, but don't expect it to flow over to the other ones. Matter of fact, Paul also said in 1 Timothy 4 that physical training is of some value. It's good for you, but godliness has value for all things, holding promise for both the present life and the life to come. So don't think it's going to overflow. Now let's move on to the engine, the coolant, your emotions. Okay? Now your emotions are very important, because really a lot of what went into that survey was people's emotions, wasn't it? It was they're emotionally feeling okay, feeling bad about themselves. Can I just start with what the hole is? Because here's what you think the hole is, and here's what the hole really is in your coolant system, in your emotion system. If I ask you what the hole is, what messes up your emotions, it's people and circumstances. That's what you think, right? Matter of fact, some of you could name names. Right, if I want my emotions to crash, I just need to run into this person, or the circumstances have to, or I got to come home and, right? No. Why? Because it's inside. It's your decision. It's what you're learning. Do you know what the hole is in the emotional tank, in the coolant tank? You're not going to like this, and I'm going to get mean in just a second. Negative thoughts. Negative thoughts are what drain you. Let me tell you something. Tell you what Jesus and Paul said years ago. Okay? Matter of fact, let's go and just read it. Okay? Can we just read that? This is what he said. He said, "Fix your thoughts on what is true and honorable and right and pure and lovely and admirable." Non-negative thoughts. Think about things that are excellent and worthy of praise. Keep putting into practice all you learned and received from me, everything you heard from me and saw me doing. Then the God of what? Peace will be with you. How do you get the God of peace with you? You think about things that are true and honorable and right and pure and lovely and admirable. So if your emotions are going down, your emotions are going to a negative place, what should you do? What we've been telling people, what Christians have been buying into for all these years, and it gets worse and worse and worse, is you need to take a drug for that. Now, I admit, there are people who have chemical imbalances and they need medication to help them through. And I know sometimes people go through a period of time where they need some help. But can I just make a suggestion? Now, this is going to be, I'm sorry. Can I make a suggestion? Could you please try God's prescription before you run to the doctor? Could you just give it a shot? And the next time you start feeling just a little bit unhappy, could you go here first? Because for the last 2,000 years, people have been using this prescription, and it's been working most of the time. Again, there are times when you need something else, and I'm not saying that that's not true, but I know people, and as soon as they start to feel a little bit of a dip, they're off to the doctor to get a new set of medication instead of saying, "Why don't I do this?" Or, here's the other thing we do. I could get up here and I could tell you, you know what I've discovered? If I increase my magnesium, my zinc, and my zirconium levels in my life, that my emotions get better. I'm telling you the truth. I am telling you this. I didn't believe it myself at first, but I was feeling kind of discouraged, and I doubled my magnesium, increased my zinc, and took my zirconium level, and I doubled both of those, and I'm feeling so much better. And if I told you that, half you guys would go home and do it. Or if I told you what you need to do is take this thing out of your life. We have found that broccoli, because it's green and looks like a tree, it messes with your head. You think you're eating trees, and that makes you discouraged because you're killing off the forests and all that deforestation, and you blame yourself for Brazil. So if you will just cut broccoli out of your life, just eliminate broccoli, just beat broccoli down. Don't even use the word broccoli. If you'll just do that, you will increase your... And I could tell you that, and I would say, and I didn't believe it until I did it, and it worked. And I threw in some ginkgo biloba and some stuff to smell, and man, I'm better. And I can tell you that, and people will rush out and they'll do it, and they'll put it on Facebook, and they'll write posts about it, and they'll do all those things, and they'll never try this. And I can come up with the wackiest thing in the world, and you will try that, and you won't try this. And God says, if your emotions, if you're having trouble with negative emotions, and you're feeling discouraged, and like I said, nothing that's chemical, but you're having that, go here. At least give God's prescription a shot before you try the other stuff. Am I being too harsh? Probably. And if what I'm saying discourages you, read this. Okay? Does that make sense? It's been working for, like I said, a couple thousand years. Try it. Okay? And like I said, there are times, but this. Okay? That's the second one. You got your physical, the gasoline. You've got your emotional, which is the coolant, and then you've got the oil, which is your spiritual. Okay? And this is, for most people, unfortunately, this is your last resort. When you've tried everything you can physically, when you've done Dave Ramsey, who I like Dave Ramsey, you've done Dave Ramsey, and you've done all the books you can think of for all the stuff you can take to fix your emotions, and none of it works, they go, you know what? Maybe I should check out God. Matter of fact, I bet there's a couple people here, and you're here because it's the last thing you can think of to try, because you tried the other stuff. We'll talk a little bit later why you should just start here. Make this the first one. But spiritual is where you're connecting with God. How do you do that? Again, you don't need anything weird. You don't need a whole lot of strange stuff. People have been doing this for a couple thousand years. They're called disciplines. I like the phrase habits. It's developing the habits that keep you close to God. It's spending time reading the Bible. It's listening to guys like me talk and teach you the Bible. It's gathering together and worshiping as a group together. It's getting into a small group and encouraging each other. It's going out and serving in the church and in the world. It's doing the basic things of Christianity. And by the way, here again, we love a quick fix, and we love for people to show us something new and different, because guess what? We just discovered this amazing thing that will help your spiritual development so much better than all the things that we've been doing for 2,000 years that have been working. Basics. Don't save them for last. Here's what you're doing. Here's what a lot of you are doing. Man, things are so bad, I had to start praying. I just couldn't think of anything else to do, so I said, well, I'm going to pray and go to church. Oh. Yeah. Oh, by the way, let me tell you before I get too much farther, let me tell you where the hole is in that tank. It's really simple. It's called sin. Okay, Isaiah talks about it. Isaiah says that your iniquities, which is sins, doing things that are wrong, are separating you from your God, and your sins have hidden his face from you. So he doesn't listen. And, well, I've been mean so far. I'm just going to keep it up. Because that hole, for most of us, if you've been hanging around church people at all, you've gotten rid of the big obvious holes, haven't you? You know, you're not on Tinder looking to cheat on your spouse. Okay? You're not stealing stuff out of grocery stores, and you're not, robbing banks. But there are a couple little tiny things, not big bad sins, but there are a couple little ones that you just keep them kind of, like they're pets. They're not big, nasty, bad sins. They're just little bitty. It's not even like a pet, not even one of those little miniature dogs. They're like gerbils or something. It's like a gerbil sin, right? It's not a lion or one of those crazy sins like that. It's just maybe even smaller. Is a hamster smaller than a gerbil, right? It's just a little itty bit, or it's a goldfish sin. And you just keep it by the tank over here, and you just have it there, and you got rid of the big. You don't have a shark sin. It's a little bitty goldfish sin. It's a beta fish sin. And you keep that around. Still a hole. Still separates you from your God. And you need to recognize that and say, okay, if my spiritual tank keeps draining and I'm doing the right stuff, if I'm spending time in prayer, I'm spending time in reading the Bible, I'm listening to good teaching, I'm serving, I'm doing the things you're supposed to do, and I keep my spiritual tank just keeps draining, start looking for a hole. God, what is this sin that I am holding tight, this little pet sin of mine? It might be something really tiny like, gossip. Which, if you ever read the Bible, you read the New Testament, it starts talking about sins. There'll be these terrible sins like, blowing up a million people, and, and in number 7 will be gossip. Every time. And remember, by the way, you remember how you fix a sin in your life. Let's remind you that, since we're... What's the step 1 in fixing sin in your life? Quit it. Stop. Okay? That's number 1. Step 1, stop. And step 2 is find the positive alternative to that. If you keep lying, you take off lying and you put on what? Truth. Start saying the truth in love to people. If you tear people down with your words, stop it, take that off, and put in building people up with your word. It's really not complicated. Okay? So when you find, okay, there's my little hole, stop it and move on. And here's what's going to happen now. I've got a tank of my physical. My tank's filling up. I'm not draining it by doing stupid things. I'm eating healthily. There's no extremes in my life. I'm okay. I recognize that moving to a new house won't make me any happier. And I say, I'm going to choose to accept what God's given me, and I'm going to be content with it. Then I'm going to trust God. And what's contentment plus trust? Peace. And then in my spirit, in my emotional life, I'm going to focus on things that are good. I'm going to think positive thoughts. It sounds almost weird, but it's true. God said it. I'm going to think about the positive. I'm going to look at the positive. And spiritually, I'm going to do the right things, and I'm going to weed out the sin in my life. I'm going to take it off and put it on. And this is all, what's it start with? It starts with a decision. Now, of course, I got to tell you something. If you ever get to do a thing where you teach in groups of people, like I do or anything close to it, here's the problem with any sermon that you do. You get to live it the week before. Oh, do you get to live it the week before? And it is Saturday afternoon, and I have had that week. And everything is just, it's raining cow patties again. Great. And you're going, rah, rah, and I'm walking around going, okay, what am I supposed to do with this? I'm going to decide that God works all things for good. And that there are lessons he's wanting to teach me through this crap that is falling from the sky. No. Not going there. I'm going to look for positive. I'm going to find ways to work this out. I'm going to do the right things. I'm going to take the right steps. And I'm going to build this up. And it's not easy. But it's a decision that you make. And remake, and remake, and remake. And it's a class that you take. And you teach yourself, and you train yourself, and you work on it. And then, this is where it gets really, I think, cool. Is because the ultimate peace and joy and contentment are divine. See, you can't fully top off your tank because God has the ability to bring in the last pieces to make that happen. Like it says that, how they put it, always be full of joy in the Lord. Okay? Next one is what? Then you'll experience God's peace, which exceeds everything we can understand. His peace will guard your hearts and minds as you live in Christ Jesus. I want you to see one word. Where'd it go? Leave that off. Which will exceed anything we can understand. Peace that exceeds anything you can understand. Now let's unpack that just for a second. You ever sent this picture or saw this picture on Facebook or Instagram or any of those other things? The feet picture. You know the feet picture? It's the picture of the person's feet. All you can see is like their knees to their feet. And then there's sand. And then there's ocean. And usually in the corner, just in the corner, there's a cup with the drink, with the straw or the flower or the umbrella. And then there's the caption, feeling peaceful. Of course you're feeling peaceful. You went to the East Coast Distribution Center for peace. This is not exceeding my understanding. You would have a problem, real problem, if you don't have peace there. You know what peace that exceeds understanding is? Moms, you know this one? You're sitting down in a certain room of the house. And you managed to get the door shut before anybody else got in. And you're sitting there, and there's a tap at the door. Mom, Sean just threw up in your bed, and I think I messed my diaper because it's running down my leg onto your carpet, and the phone rings. Peace there is peace that exceeds understanding. That's the divine peace, is when you end up in a situation where a person should not experience peace and you have it anyway. And that's what God says. God says, I'm going to give you, if you're doing this, if you're keeping your tanks full and you're thinking the positive thoughts, I will give you a peace in a situation where you shouldn't have peace. When your car breaks down on the side of the road during rush hour and you're just, peace. When your boss is suddenly yelling at you and it wasn't even your fault, but they're certainly seem like they're going to blame you for it. Peace. You're in the middle of the chaos. Here comes the peace. Because, why? Ultimate peace, joy, and contentment are divine. They come from God. And the last verse, I have learned how to be content with whatever I have. Remember, this guy's in jail when he wrote that. For I can do everything through Christ who gives me strength. I can do everything through Christ because I have contentment and peace in whatever my situation, that my situation is smaller than God. Matter of fact, when Paul decided to tell you what the value of having God's Spirit in your life, what it would look like, he said this: the fruit of the Spirit, the natural thing that flows out, if you have the Spirit, God's Spirit, is love. And what are the next two? It's like he'd read Philippians, isn't it? Or he wrote Philippians. Yeah. These are the things that you can work and you do your part and you get the tank to a certain point because you're working on the physical. You're not expecting the physical to do more than it can do. You're not expecting the emotional to do more than it can do. And you're keeping the fluids in the right spots and you're not trying too hard. You're just letting it happen and being content. And God takes that and God multiplies that. And God does amazing things in you. And he gives you a peace that exceeds your expectations and your understandings. And that's when the God picture comes into it. That's when it stops being just me thinking it and making it happen. And now, one last little tiny piece. Can I tell you where you need to start? Because most of the time, we start in the wrong place. Like we'll say, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get my emotions under control. I'm going to start getting contentment with my emotions. The problem with that is that your emotions are fluid and flexible. They change all the time. Let me read it to you. Emotional contentment, satisfaction, and joy, there it goes, are transient because your emotions are always in flux. Right? And we've all done that. You do this all the time. Somebody came up to me after first service and said, yeah, we were like excited about this thing. They're getting ready to build a house, and suddenly they get this notification that everything's on hold. And they're like, and he said, we're here, and we get that news and we go, that's, by the way, normal. That's a natural thing that happens. That's why starting with emotions is a challenge. And physical, you don't want to start with the physical because your physical contentment, satisfaction, and joy, they're subject to whims of age and health, so also transient. The word I didn't put in there, whims of age and health and gravity. Yeah, we need to change that for the next one. Okay? Because those things just keep coming. They just keep coming. You don't get, you know what every health fitness person has in common? They're going to die. They're going to die. I mean, some of them live to 95 and some of them live to 45, but they all die. Okay? Because that's one of the things about life. You ain't getting out of this alive. Okay? And as you get older, things change. Things get harder. Like I said, gravity says, hello, I'm here. Right? And so that's hard because if you're building it on your physical thing, I did a competition a couple weeks ago, and it was cool because they put me in my age group. So I didn't get as embarrassed as I would have been if I'd have been with the young folk. Right? And that happens to everybody. And if you're building your contentment on the physical stuff, your physical body is going to break down no matter how much you take care of it, no matter how much you eat. And by the way, that house you love, we've been in ours 12 years. And I've told you before, Dominique wants to move us into a rest facility this fall. Okay, she has determined the house is too big for us and that we need to be in some sort of assisted care where we've got a small living room, a bedroom, and a bathroom. That's what we need, and that's what she wants us to move into this fall. And I'm like, even if I wanted to, I couldn't because nobody in their right mind would buy this house. We've been in it for 12 years, and I just can't keep up. There's one, you remember that time we had that little bit of water in the upstairs, then there's a hole in the ceiling in the dining room. Remember that? That's still there. And I've told you guys, we got bunches of dogs. Do we have a count? Do we have a running count? We need like a thing on the ceiling that tells us how many dogs we currently have, which means our backyard looks like they're going to do a World War I reenactment of some kind. Okay? And we're going to have to get really rich to be able to fix up this house enough to sell it to any human being, except a flipper. They're going to look and flip this. I can turn this into a regular house. So... and that decays, and you get a car, and the car does. I'm driving around my car. I love my car, but it's done that thing for everything holding the cloth to the ceiling is gone, and it sits right here. And when I back up, I like to do this thing where I actually turn and pop up, and I do that and it just sort of drapes around my head. And it's just this never-ending thing of I'll fix that one, okay, fix that one, let's get this one and that one. So if I'm basing my contentment and my joy, if I'm starting with my physical, I'm going to have a problem because all the physical stuff goes south. But the third one is the spiritual contentment. That's supported by an unchanging God. So can I make you a suggestion? If you're wanting to start ramping up your contentment, moving into your peace, moving into your joy, step one, quit faking it. I know you are. All us church people, we learn very easy we're supposed to have joy. And we learned also very early it's really hard to maintain it. So we learn to fake it really, really well. Just quit. Just stop it. Just knock it off. We know. We're on the same club. And start working on the spiritual. Start working on that relationship with God. Keep that oil full. Because if anybody here knows cars, if you're going to run out of gas, coolant, or oil, which do you most want to run out of? Gas. It's an inconvenience. It's embarrassing to walk along the side of the road with the thing, and your family's going to laugh at you because there was a blinking light. That's all that happens. If your coolant runs really low, the engine gets hot and it stops. And you put coolant in it and it takes off again. Oil? I was doing financing for a car dealership many, many moons ago. Now, we were selling a guy a car, and he was talking about how he'd been refurbishing a really nice older car. And he'd been working on it for years. It had been a project of his, and he was just about done, and he was under the car working on something, and he had an idea. I probably should, since I'm down here under it, I should go ahead and change the oil. So he undoes the little thing, slides there, drains the oil out, and forgot. And a couple hours later, he gets up and he cranks it. And if you don't know what happens to an engine when it doesn't have any oil, all those pistons and cylinders, the heat generates enough to where it melts and the engine becomes, instead of a working thing, it becomes a block of metal. And all the work he'd done was gone because he didn't have an engine for the car because he was out of oil. Which is kind of what happens to us if we totally ignore the oil in our lives. We totally ignore the spiritual. We totally ignore the divine. And I've given you some good tips, but if you're here today and you don't have that relationship with Christ, recognize that you're missing the most important piece. And if you would like to have that relationship with Christ so you can get the oil flowing in the spiritual aspect of your life, we've got these blue bags on the table in the back, and if you just grab one of the bags, after the service, somebody that's been trained will take about 10 minutes. They'll walk you through the bag and show you how to have that relationship with Christ, to get that receptacle full. If you have a relationship with Christ, you need to announce that. We have baptisms once a month. I always point where the baptistry goes, even though it's not there right now. But if you need to be baptized, let us know. We do that, like I said, the first Wednesday of every month. If you want to start living into God's design for your life, to fully fill up the oil and learn a bit about the emotions and the physical even, we have our step classes. They start tonight. Class 1 is tonight. It's at 6 o'clock in the Jitterbugs, which is on the other side of the tent building. I'll be teaching that class. It takes about an hour. And be glad to plug in there. It could be there's something that you want to pray about based on what we've been talking about. If you want to pray, we've got a cross in that corner over there. And the purpose of that is simply a place to go and pray during this next song. Pray about anything. Maybe something we talked about, maybe something else, maybe just a big need in your life, maybe somebody you want to pray for. That's just go over there and pray if you like. If you want to pray with somebody, we've got some people lined up around the outside of the auditorium who'd love to just approach one of them and say, would you pray with me? And finally, we've got communion stations, one in the front right here and one in the back. If you want to remind yourself of all that Christ's done for you. I started, the series is called Dandelions. And the base, remember, is these are the things you need to take with you. These are the things that I really think you need to make sure you keep. And if you're staying here for the next 20 years, you need to keep this. It's so tempting to go fall back into that fake joy. to pretend you're something that you're not right now. It's a totally different thing to decide and learn how to be content and peaceful and full of joy. And if God's moving you somewhere else, don't go somewhere and fake it. Don't pretend you're something that you're not. That just brings misery. But if you're willing to decide and learn and apply, you can keep your physical tank full enough even during difficult times. You can keep your emotional tank working in the most challenging times. And God's Spirit can work in your spiritual life through all of those to bring you a peace that passes all understanding. And that's what I want you to take with you. And that's what I want you to keep with you, is that God wants to give me peace that passes understanding. And I am deciding today that I'm going to learn how to do that.
Will you please stand with us?